Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Hello and welcome to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. It would seem the more the anti-Trumpers push to have the president removed from office, the more we learn about the media in such places as the FBI, how they really work. To date, the investigation known as Russiagate has revealed preciously little, though we're learning there was collusion elsewhere. Cross-talking real collusion, I'm joined by my guest, Richard Goodstein in Washington. He is a Democratic political strategist and a former advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2 presidential campaigns. In Miami, we have John Cardillo. He is host of Off the Cuff on Rebel Media. And in Phoenix, we cross to Josh Bernstein. He is a TV talk show host. All right, gentlemen, crosstalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. Josh, I'm going to go to you first because one of the crosstalk rules is always go to the person that got up earliest for this program, and that is you. I want to talk about some of the things that's coming out of the FBI and the special investigation into alleged Trump collusion with Russia during the election. We have this Peter Strzok, and he's written some, with his girlfriend, some pretty nasty things about Donald Trump. He's an idiot, he is a nuisance, he's a menace, all these kind of things. That's fine. That's fine. You can have an opinion like that. But when you have something like this, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, presumably that's Andrew McCabe. There's no way he gets elected, but I am afraid we can't take the risk. It's like an insurance policy in an unlikely event that you're going to die before 40. I mean, that's more than just saying you don't like someone, calling somebody a creep or something like that. That sounds like you got a plan and you've got power and you're going to make things happen behind the scenes. How do you read that, Josh?
Well, I think I read this as the elites and the deep state and the globalists, they all expected Hillary Clinton to be the next president of the United States. But the American people thought otherwise, and they voted overwhelmingly to make Donald Trump the 45th president of the United States. For Rod Rosenstein to say with a straight face in any testimony that he believes that there's no collusion and that he doesn't think that Robert Mueller should be either investigated or replaced is just insane. It truly is. I mean, if you look at, and I'm calling it collusion GPS, but if you look at fusion GPS and you see all the things that have happened from Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr being part of that organization, then you have the fact that they were having secret meetings. Bruce Orr had secret meetings with the people at Fusion GPS, with Glenn Simpson, and of course with Christopher Steele, the one who planted the fake Russian dossier. It is absolutely incredible why the Justice Department is not putting a special prosecutor on Robert Mueller to investigate Uranium One and Fusion GPS is beyond all recognition. I can't even imagine why that is not happening. The only thing I can think of is maybe Jeff Sessions is compromised in some respect.
Richard, weigh in there. I mean, at the very least, these are uncomfortable things that have been revealed that happened during the election and the transition here. I mean, the fact that you have a high-ranking member at the FBI, his wife, is working for Fusion GPS, I mean, that is just extraordinary. I mean, and it took quite a bit of effort for Congress to get this kind of this information. I mean, they had to really, and they're still obstructing requests from Congress here. I mean, don't we need a little bit more transparency at the FBI about all this? Go ahead, Richard.
Peter, do you assume your viewers know about Alice in Wonderland, where up was down and in was out and black was white? Josh just referred to this overwhelming victory. This is a victory by somebody who got 46%. His opponent got 3 million more votes. 54% of the people rejected him. He had the lowest 25% of the electoral college win of all time. So I'm just saying.
No, can you address? Can you address the FBI question, please?
I am. The FBI is what won this election for Donald Trump. Why? Because Comey was pressured by FBI agents in New York, right? And he had his press conference back in July last year criticizing Hillary. That was totally against the rules. He put out that letter 11 days before the election, which totally undermined her at a time when the FBI knew darn well that Donald Trump was basically working with the Russians, or the Russians were certainly trying to help him, and did nothing to disclose that
based
to the public.
On the dossier.
So for now, to say
based
that the
on
FBI
the dossier that the Democrats paid for, and presumably the FBI as well. I mean, okay, all right. Let me pull in John here. Listen, Richard, you're always a jewel on the program, but let me go to John here, okay? But okay, if we connect the dots here, if we're using, when I just gave that quote right there, I mean, that looks to me like trying to get FISA warrants on your political enemies, and this is the FBI, okay? If you want to go after your political opponents when you're in a political party, that's fair game. Everybody does it. This is the FBI. Okay, right. I want to know more about these types of things because we need to know if the FBI is corrupt. Welcome back to Crosstalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter LeBeau. To remind you, we're discussing still another Washington scandal. Okay, let's go back to Phoenix. I know you got a lot to say. Go ahead.
Well, look, I think Richard is the one that's actually in Alice in Wonderland because he's ignoring the facts that there are all these other conflicts of interest as well as all these other crimes that have taken place here. And yet we're sitting here concentrating on something that's already been debunked, and the fact that there was no Russian collusion. We now know that James Comey has even admitted in testimony that the President of the United States was not under surveillance. He was under surveillance. He was not under investigation. And if I was the President of the United States, I would do basically one thing. I would instruct my Department of Justice to immediately start 5 counter investigations. I would look into Robert Mueller and his ties to Uranium One and the Russians. I would look into James Comey's leaking of information that he testified in the Senate Judiciary Committee. I would also open up an investigation into Fusion GPS. I would also open up an investigation into Tarmac Gate, Loretta Lynch, and Susan Rice. If we opened up all of these simultaneous investigations, it would completely drown out this Mueller witch hunt. And that's exactly what it is. It is a witch hunt. They hate this president so much that even if they can't find anything on him, they go way back on these trumped-up charges against Paul Manafort. And now you have, Michael Flynn and everything else. So basically, they're trying to do anything they can. And the Trump attorneys, I don't think they're very smart because they should be instructing the president to end this, and all he has to do is use all these other investigations to do it. It would drown out the Mueller investigation. We'd be back to talking about the good things like the economy, the stock market, and everything else that's happening in this country.
Okay, John, you wanted to jump in there in Miami? Go right ahead.
Yeah, let me jump in. First of all, Richard, let's stop the false narrative that Donald Trump Jr. did anything improper or illegal. It's opposition research. In fact, he did far less than your idol Hillary Clinton did to Bernie Sanders, another Democrat. Donald Trump Jr. took a legal opposition research meeting with a Russian lawyer who, by the way, had an immigration parole extension granted by the Obama administration. So don't blame him for taking an Oppo meeting. That happens every day in politics. You know it, I know it, Josh knows it, Peter knows it. That being said, we're missing one important point about Nellie Orr. Nellie Orr didn't just work for Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS described Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr's wife. Bruce Orr was the number 4 man in the Department of Justice. The number 4 man. He had 2 roles, unprecedented. He had a criminal role and a counterintelligence role at DOJ. His office was 3 or 4 doors down from the Attorney General, 3 or 4 doors down from Rod Rosenstein. His wife, Nellie Orr, was considered the expert on all matters Russia at Fusion GPS. If you don't think she had a hand in, if not directed, the compiling of this fake news garbage dossier, you got another thing coming. This is a scandal that makes Watergate pale in comparison. This might be the greatest political scandal in American history. The number 4 man at DOJ, the number 2 man at FBI, Andrew McCabe's handpicked disciple, Peter Strzok, conspiring against a political campaign, then taking that junk dossier to a FISA court, resting on their FBI credentials to convince a judge to issue a secret warrant, a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court warrant, to surveil another political campaign for nothing other than political reasons. Now, with regards to Paul Manafort, if he committed financial crimes in 2006, he should pay. But nothing was found with regards to Russia collusion. With Papadopoulos, he pled guilty on a process crime. Nothing with Trump-Russia collusion. Michael Flynn, a process crime.
All right,
lying to investigators. There's a lot of debate. Let me just finish one point.
No.
None of those interviews
hey, you guys, it's
happened.
It's actually 2-3 against 1, and I want Richard to get in there. Weigh in, Richard, please.
First, as regards this dossier, okay, I know everybody's spun up about it. Michael Flynn has pled guilty to lying to the FBI, not because of a dossier. Papadopoulos has pled guilty to lying to the FBI, not because of a dossier.
So what?
Paul Manafort was indicted by a grand jury not because of a dossier. And the dossier, my point is, what will bring Trump and the people around him down are facts, okay, are facts. The dossier might as well not even exist for purposes of what
Richard,
it is that Mueller is
give us one fact.
Give me
one fact. I hear all these. I hear this all the time. What is the fact that you're referring to, please?
Yeah, the fact is, I'll give you 4 facts. Russians said, we want to help you. The Trump people said, we want help. The Russians did help, WikiLeaks, etc.
When,
and
Richard?
Trump talked about it 100 times.
Timeline is important,
Richard.
The
answer, Peter.
Ask CNN.
The answer, Peter.
Ask ABC News. The timeline is important. When did they ask? When?
You asked me a question. Well, the answer is the intelligence community, which you may not buy, and Josh and John may not accept the legitimacy of the U.S. intelligence community, but most people in America do, and they say that the Russians very much wanted to help Donald Trump win and Hillary Clinton lose, and by leaking WikiLeaks,
the sad thing about that, no evidence has ever been presented to back that claim up. Not one shred of evidence.
Well, the intelligence community.
So I just have to believe them, right? No, I don't. Trust but verify. A great Republican said that once. Okay, go ahead,
every
John.
Single prosecutor, by the way.
Go, Josh. Go ahead, Josh.
Let me throw a couple points in here.
All right, John first, real quick. Hang on, guys. We have 4 professional talkers here. John, you go first in Miami. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. The intelligence community never said that. What the intelligence community said was that Russia meddled in our elections. We knew that. That's old news. They never once said that Russia weaponized on behalf of Donald Trump. We know that Hillary Clinton was far more kind to Russia, and Russia paid far more money to the Clinton Foundation than they've ever given Donald Trump. So that is debunked, completely debunked. To say the dossier is irrelevant is ridiculous. Think of the legal concept, fruits of the poisonous tree. When I was active law enforcement, if I presented junk to a judge and I lied, I stood in front of that judge and said, I vetted this, it's valid, when I knew it wasn't, when I knew it was garbage, and that judge gave me a warrant, a defense attorney would get the entire case thrown out because of fruits of poisonous tree. I provided junk to get the warrant. I got the warrant under unconstitutional false pretenses, which is exactly what happened with the dossier. So the dossier is not irrelevant. The dossier is the crux of the issue.
I agree.
And there is nothing improper, nothing illegal, nothing remotely wrong with opposition research, whether it comes from a Russian, a Saudi Arabian, a Venezuelan, a Canadian, a Texan, or someone from Rhode Island. As long as you're not exchanging money and not disclosing it, there's nothing remotely wrong with it. We've got to debunk all of these ridiculous false narratives.
Okay, Josh in Phoenix, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that all of the prosecutors so far, all of them, have ties to either Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, and or Barack Obama's administration. Okay? You've got Jenny Rhee. You've got Andrew Weissman. You've got Goldstein. You've got Peter Strzok. You've got, what's her name? Berman Jackson. You've got the other one that also was the prosecutor against Manafort. So this is this is not an impartial investigation. This is not an independent investigation. If it was, then you would have prosecutors that were from, I don't know, the George W. Bush administration, or you'd have people that were from the George H. Walker Bush, or even if the Reagan administration, if people are still around from there. This would have a mix of people, but it's not. It is nothing but Clinton operatives and Barack Obama appointees.
Nominee.
Go ahead, Richard. Go ahead. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah. I'm saying Mueller, Robert Mueller, who's the head of this, was a Ronald Reagan appointee to a top law enforcement position. He was a George H.W. Bush appointee to a top law enforcement position. He was a George W. Bush to a top law enforcement position. Mueller. So this notion about who's on the staff, you know who gave contributions
Mueller
to a political party?
Is a deep
Neil
state
Gorsuch,
operative.
who was just appointed to the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm not, I'm not so worried about Democrat or Republican guys. I'm more worried about the deep state. That's what I worry about.
Right.
Okay, John. One of the things, one of the things I really worry about here is if you look, because the way things are going, Manafort and Flynn seem to have been unfairly treated because they said something that wasn't true. I think a whole string of people in the Obama administration weren't forthright with the FBI. Flynn's got to be the saddest feeling guy right now in the whole world. He was doing what everybody else was doing here. Yeah. But what I find worrisome, and I hope Richard can respond to it because we're rapidly running out of time, is that there is a very strong sense of bias here on the people that are doing the Russian investigation. 9 out of the 15 players on Mueller's team, it's factually known they were contributors to the Clinton people, to Democrats. So, but people that are going forward, and maybe even Flynn and Manafort will say this is it. You see, these people are intensely politicized. They're very biased here. I mean, they will be able to challenge any kind of prosecution and even sentencing and go back to court and say, I was in the poison well. The atmosphere was very poisonous. We need to know more about this cabal in the FBI and the DOJ. What's going on? I mean, did they sit around and strategize? Because it certainly sounds like it. Go ahead, John.
Peter,
I think they did. Look, here's
hang on, let me get John first. We'll go to Richard.
It's not about Republican and Democrat. This is about establishment and deep state. And Strzok used the words insurance policy. Well, their dossier was the insurance policy to ensure Hillary's win. That failed. Mueller is their insurance policy. He was the contingency plan in the event Trump won. I don't care who he was appointed by. The guy spent his entire life as a deep state operative working in government, and now he's being tasked with maintaining the status quo.
I have to jump in here. Richard's been the odd man out. 30 seconds. You got the last 30 seconds, Richard.
All these comments in these texts that were attributed to Strzok were things that the American public believed, that Trump was dishonest, right? That he was reckless, that he was incompetent. This was not something that was unique to Peter Strzok. And as regards all these terms, that's what Jeb Bush was saying. That's what Ted Cruz was saying. All these horrible things that were being said about Donald Trump by Strzok, all these Republican opponents were saying the same thing. That's what the American public, by and large, believes. The American people are not prosecuted. So somehow or other to say that
and Sturzak are.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't on that text chain.
He was a man. He was a very powerful man, and he got caught. Gentlemen, we've run out of time. Many thanks to my guests in Washington, Miami, and in Phoenix. And thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time. And remember, crosstalk rules.